Welcome to the foundation, y'all. This episode is Trustee Basics. You need to know when going private, part 2. And like one of the big things from last week, I got several people who emailed me or hit me up and said, one of the most compelling things that I said last week was you didn't have to start your trust with Federal Reserve notes. I thought that was common knowledge, and not to be pejorative or impress upon you that I think that that's some sort of lack of education or nothing. I'm just saying, like, I think sometimes I underestimate, what would I say? I guess the success, that's what I'll say, the success of our public educational system with regards to completely pulling out the education of any type of financing or teaching of assets of substance that are outside of paper instruments. Pieces of paper, like for real, these things are pieces of paper. A stock is a piece of paper, a bond is a piece of paper, a Federal Reserve note is a piece of paper. And I think, that's the reason why I jumped on the basics. Because to me, people say this stuff is very advanced. Like, okay, so I was opening another account, this trust brokerage account, the brokerage account, because I know, one of my things is I've always, well, not always, but recently in the past couple, 10 years or so, I've been like, okay, I want to manage a fund, So I've opened a few trust brokerage accounts at different brokerage firms, Charles Schwab and, stuff like that. So on opening another one, I walked in and I'm dealing with these guys, and it's getting to the point where it's kind of funny, but I'm just going to be honest, man, because y'all my family and I just keep it real. It's getting to the point where, I'm dealing with people in the public that seem very young. These guys are young, man. It's like these guys don't know, they don't know too much about, how I do business. First and foremost, even though it's every day to me, and I say it's a lifestyle, y'all. It's when you become a trustee, you're doing the same things you do in life, but you're doing it differently. Whether you have more accountability or more procedure behind it, or more of a purpose, or more specificity as far as what you can do and what powers are, and to me, a lot of people be like, well, being a trustee, it's kind of scary and blah blah blah. To me, it's freeing. It's I feel free. I feel enabled to do things that corporate officers and different trustees of corporate boards cannot do ever, because of the restriction of the legislation, as well as the specific trust indenture that you're dealing with. And I like it, but I've been dealing with this stuff for a while, and to me, I guess it's every day, and I don't realize that. Most of the people I deal with every day understand what I'm talking about. Even my family, they'll be like, "Oh my God, he's talking about trust again," but they know what I'm talking about, and they're very familiar. And I guess, through the past couple of years, I guess I've been desensitized to, the mind state that I was in when this stuff wasn't so simple to me, when it wasn't every day to me. And as I was saying, so I'm opening another, brokerage account or whatever, and the guy who, his dude's like 20, he's got to be like 15, 20 years younger than me. And my birthday's coming up in a little bit, and I'm just like, around the birthday, I'll be thinking like, dang, what have I done? And I feel good about my life. Don't get me wrong, man. I've accomplished some stuff. I've been all over the world. I've really done some things that, even to this day, I'm really, really, it's unbelievable to me. I'm very, very thankful. But still, I'm kind of, I got gray hair and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like you can see it if you look closely. And anyways, he leaned over and he said, "Oh, I've been with the company for a few years, and I appreciate you being patient." And he was like, "The structure that the structure of the trust that you come in with, I've never seen anything so complex." And was that yesterday or today? Because I'm doing this now, y'all. And it's at a different brokerage. It's not at the same firm that I did the other one at, which would probably be real easy. But I don't want to do that. I want to, you gotta limit the liability. You spread the stuff out. This is just the way I'm looking at it. So it's this whole process over again, which takes some time. It's actually going faster than last time, and maybe that's probably because what I learned through the first couple process. But either way, when he said, I've never seen anything this complex, I realized I was like, man, yeah, I guess this stuff is complex. It's very complex. And sometimes I make it seem like, or I kind of play it off like, it's nothing. And I think, that frustrates people, especially some trustees. And I'm sorry, y'all. For the trustees, any of y'all who like be frustrated because how nonchalant I am with the info. Just because I get it. And I know what it's like to not get it. And, people just be like, la, la, la. And just, just doing their dance all in front of me, just like back and forth and stuff. And I can't even, and I don't want to try because everybody looking. But I know what it's like. So it's important to me to do this, this little Trust Basics part 2. Trust Basics you didn't even know when going private part 2. Like very, basic stuff to me. Stuff that I take for granted. But it's complex, man. It is. And, I do have to admit that I have an issue sometimes with, kind of getting in my own little world. And some people have said that, inconsiderate or whatever. And, I'm never trying to be inconsiderate to nobody. I'm never trying to, make someone feel like they're not, on my level or nothing. Because, what level am I on? Who really knows? I just know some trust stuff. I know structure, and I know, how to interface with entities under contract from a position, a specific position, or post, or position. I'm really familiar with that. And whether you're talking corporations, whether you're talking trust or foundations or nonprofits or whatever, man, we're talking fundamentally interfacing with the public or with other parties through a specific post or role contractually within some sort of, technically fictitious organization. I'm very familiar with that and different nuances to that. So, without further ado, let's jump into this. So ultimately, I'm gonna get basic is whatever. A trust is a contract, man. Quit playing. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. A trust is ultimately a contract. The only time a properly executed private express trust, like for real stuff, comes under trust law is how the income is dispersed and how the income is taxed. And now, before I can go any further, I'm not a law student. Actually, I am a law student. I study law, but I'm not a law student. You know what I'm saying? Year 1, year 2. I don't, I'm not in school with that dance. I'm not a legal attorney. I don't get legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a tax accountant, attorney, none of that stuff. So this stuff is for informational, educational purpose only. You got to do your own dance when it comes to, due diligence and checking out what I say. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to check out what I say. It's going to come back pow. So it is what it is, ultimately. But a proper trust is a contract. So the difference between a trust contract and a trust agreement, the main difference, in my opinion, is that one is public and the other is private. Traditionally, usually. Not all the time. You're not going to find like 100%. You know what I'm saying? There's some people run around with 6 fingers, man. And you wouldn't know it if you just looked at their hands real quick. but they got 6 fingers on both hands and they work magically. Like them things just think, man, wow. Man, you think I'm playing? Look it up on YouTube, man. There's people out here, man, will grab a bat or grab you or grab your arm with 6 fingers, man. But, so what I'm saying is, not everything, hey. But, usually a trust agreement is, dealing with some sort of legislative entity, and a trust contract is dealing with some sort of private entity. And entity in the sense that it is a legal person, and, through legislation, these legal persons receive certain, rights similar or on par to, natural persons, real people, living and breathing. I say living and breathing because person and people and man and human and man and then mankind. I mean, I'd be like, man, okay, so was mankind, is that kind of a man? Like, I'm not gonna get into it. But living, breathing, how about that? Living, breathing, walking, talking. So, but having the same rights, own property, sue and be sued, blah blah blah. So there's two ways to do that. Ultimately, it's through a private contractual entity, or you can have some public contractual entities, but private contracts, which is the right to common law right to contract unlimited. That's the common law. People, it's a common law contract. It is not a common law contract, man. Or common law trust. You got. I heard you know how to do your dance with common law trust. Like, nah, man. I know what you mean, but it is not a common law trust. It is a contract that is executed under the common right. The common law right to contract unlimited. Distinction. To me, this stuff is simple, but if your foundation is distinct and specific, then your dance is distinct and specific. So it's a contract. That's where you get the constitutional protections. You don't have any constitutional protections. I'm not even gonna go down that road. We've done contracted into so many different come on. You know what I'm saying? Like, holler at Yusuf if you really wanna. I don't go there, man. I don't even know where to start, where to begin. Look, I stick with the stuff that I know and I'm comfy with. But the contract itself easily receives a constitutional protection where no state can pass any law impairing the obligation of the contract, as long as the obligation of the contract is not to break a law or harm anyone or their property. Then the court's duty is to uphold the contract. Specific. Yeah, simple. You have 3 main positions in a trust: the grantor, the trustee, and the beneficiaries. The grantor is the one who grants certain property, usually, or at least the contract indenture itself. Spells out the terms, conditions, appoints the trustees. Throws the corpus, or starts the trust out with a specific corpus or body of the trust, or the initial assets of the trust. And trustees sign on. And if you have a revocable trust, the grantor has powers over the trust. If you have an irrevocable trust, then the grantors have no power, or the grantor has no power, and they can't come back and have any say in anything. And this is where people get scared. They're like, oh, I'm supposed to put my house in trust and give it to the trustee. I have no power. Well, technically, no. The grantor can place its items in trust. You can be the trustee. Well, how do I be the grantor and the trustee without it being some sort of, arm's length situation? Well, that's where you get into trustee training and learn how to specifically do and administer these specific types of transactions. But there's a specific process and ways of doing things. But ultimately, you got the trustees, the grantor, and the beneficiary. Beneficiaries sit there and partake in the benefits that are allowed them according to the contract indenture, whether that is a distribution of income or assets or whatever, or a portion of the assets or corpus of the trust, depends on the indenture, and or beneficial use of certain trust property, whatever the trust property is. Think about it. Now, if the beneficiaries have any power or control over the trust, it is not a trust, it's considered a partnership. You can call it trust all day. You can have a trust indenture executed, all types of stuff with the proper jurisdictions. It's on the cold, ill paper. The stuff they drew the Constitution up with, baby. With the little things sticking out the paper. You can pull them off and stuff. You know what I mean? But improper administration will reduce it to, some sort of partnership or disregarded entity. And that's why I get into trustee training. First of all, I'm an educator. I'm not really into sales. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I get it. You got to operate in certain ways. But this thing it's all about education. Everything else is, circumstantial. So I'm not out here just, here's a trust. Here's a trust. Here's another trust. Here you go. Pay your fare. Because I understand that administration is key. Trustees, you can get a bad trust indenture, right? And not the work, man. You got to have certain powers. And trustees, the board, it has powers to amend the contract. But a bad trust indenture can be brought into alignment with, what is known as a good trust indenture, by those in the private, by a properly informed and educated board of trustees. The best trust indenture in the world has no hope if it's administered by uneducated and improperly positioned trustees. 3 main spots: grantor, trustee, beneficiary. 3 main spots. Then where's the situs? Okay, so where was it created? But then, as the board of trustees, they can change the situs at any time, whenever they and no state can pass any law impairing the obligation of a contract. If the board of trustees resolves at a meeting of the board of trustees to amend the original contract indenture, such amendment becomes a part of the indenture itself and therefore is law. That's very powerful. No state shall pass any law impairing the obligation of contract. That is very powerful. We're talking more powerful than an LLC. Why? More powerful than a corporation. Why? More powerful than any type of legislative entity. Why? Because control of the entity and the governance of the entity is solely held by the Board of Trustees. Regardless of any House resolution, the House and the Senate of the state, and they pass the legislation, and then the governor signs off, it doesn't matter. It does not affect the administration of the contract. The trust is not registered with the state. Lack of registration means lack of jurisdiction, unless there's improper administration with regards to specific transactions. Each transaction will be looked at on its own. You can have one commingled self-dealing transaction that will peel apart the entire whole situation from start to finish, whether that's years or months or whatever, and find that one transaction and say, oh, that transaction right there, that was self-dealing, that was commingling, you can't prove it, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to tax that transaction to you, and the money that you used to purchase the thing actually wasn't for the trust. It was for you. So all that money was income to you, and you need to pay taxes on that income. Ouch face if we're talking about some sort of vehicle or something. So that money the money that was used to purchase that was income to you, and you didn't pay taxes on it. So here's the taxes you owe plus penalties and fees all the way up from all those years back. How would you like to pay that? Most of the thing, they breached the trust, and then, if they pierce the trust, and then, it's all over. It's a rap rizzle. No. They can get you with specific transactions. Now, what is the difference between a deductible, an allowable expense according to contract or indenture, and a deductible expense according to the Internal Revenue Service? That was weird. But yeah, what's the difference between an allowable expense according to the contract indenture and an allowable expense or an allowed deductible expense according to the Internal Revenue Code? You should holler at that. But you should also look up what a grantor is, what a trustee is, and what a beneficiary is. Real quick. You also need to understand, very important, that 99% of the information with regards to trust that you're going to get from, web searches, using search engines, using Google, which is, obviously the DuckDuckGo or whatever. That's the private one people use and stuff. You're going to find predominantly trust information with regards to legislative trust. And a lot of the stuff that confuses people is it's hard for them to grasp the step between a legislative trust and a contract trust that does not owe its existence to legislation, so it's not governed by legislation. And once they grasp that, then it's the takeoff period. And I genuinely appreciate when people really start to pick up on this information, specifically in the trustee trainings. Trustee liabilities are on contracts made, whether signing as trustee or signing individually. Liability of removal for breach of trust, waste, mismanagement, or good cause shown in an action for removal in a court of equity, or according to the trust instrument, Liability for losses sustained by the trust as a result of negligence. Liability for torts and common law, criminal and civil wrongs or acts of bad faith. Trustees also run liability in all cases of commingling of trust funds and liability for all mischief of his agents contracted to exercise discretionary powers. And this is why, like, when you start trust, you really start to understand government. You understand delegations, what a sheriff is, and the sheriff's deputy, and how whatever the deputy does is on the sheriff. That's why CEOs be resigning and getting fired. People be like, "Oh man, it was the CEO did it. It was the people in the company. It's the CEO's fault. The CEO's and all those people responsible, or she is responsible for all those people. Anything that happens on their watch, it's on them. Anything, if you're a trustee and you delegate some sort of authority with regards to trust powers to any agent or manager, and they mess up, it's on the original trustee who did the delegation. But the trust is not at all liable for any losses sustained in the proper discharge of duties, and in the case of other losses due to negligence or tort, the trustee may be able to be bonded in the manner ordinarily used by executors and administrators. They are generally not liable for contracts in which liability was properly limited using the methods to be shown on specific documents when they evidence the existence of the trust. I don't care if you got a private trust, contractual trust, you can have a George Washington Carver trust. When you're doing business as a trustee of the trust, if you don't specifically present evidence to limit the liability of all these transactions and so on and so forth to the trust and the trust only, it's quite possible that when you run in the trust lien and the trust doesn't have very many assets because, you're smart, and there's a problem, the account goes negative or something like that and the trust can't pay it, and these powerful attorneys that work for these banks or whatnot are going to come after you as a specific trustee, and you're going to say, oh, well, it's common law, it's a contract, and it says in the contract that, the trustee is indemnified in these specific situations. Did you put the bank or that financial institution on notice of that? And if you did not, then it might as well not matter. It might as well not be in the contract because you didn't notice it. So many people I talk to, they'll be like, oh, I got a trust already. I'll be like, all right. Yeah, I just wanted to know how you do, what I'm saying, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, well, I got to know a little bit more, but why don't you holler at me? And then we go into these other things about how, they want to do these specific, things. And then I ask them a couple questions that are very relevant to what they want to do, and they can't answer it. Well, it's private. What's that got to do anything to do with it? I'm private, I'm private, no jurisdiction. Like, man, I really hope we can figure this out. But ultimately, what you thought may not be. Certainly may not be. So, contracts in which liability was properly limited using the method specifically showing that the trustees are identified. Such contracts may also encompass the codes and statutes of various jurisdictions, given that all man-made law is by nature fundamentally contractual. The debts of the trust incurred requiring the creditor to look solely to the trust for payment Conversely, the trust is not liable for the personal debts of the trustee, except to the extent of attachability of the trustee's interest in the trust. So if the trustee doesn't have a specific interest in the trust, then yeah. Think about it. And properly limiting your liability when you're administering the trust, in my person, is very important. People get into a lot of trouble. I've seen the people get into a lot of trouble, and it's really too bad. It's really too bad because they really get disillusioned, and they don't want to deal with the trust anymore. They don't want to deal with this, and they don't want to deal with that. And it's really it's hard for them to accept that you improperly administered it, and you just weren't really educated onto how you really should be administering the entity. And that's sad. The trustee of an express trust is empowered by the terms and provisions of the trust instrument to issue certificates not only of beneficial interest. Did you know that trustees issue the certificates of beneficial interest, but also of capital interest? So there's trust beneficial certificates and trust capital units or capital certificates. Generally speaking, beneficial interest is that which is held by the beneficiary of the trust or the beneficiaries of the trust who are entitled to a certain proportional share of the trust assets during the life or at the termination of the trust, while capital interest is that which is held by the exchanger who has invested property into the trust and thus becomes entitled to a certain proportional share of any profits and of assets remaining at the termination of the trust. Look, we got about 30 seconds left in the broadcast. If you're listening online, you want to call in 424-222-5250. Let me try that again. 424-222-5250. Otherwise, you're going to get cut off. You have to listen to the archive to check out the rest of the show. It's just the way they do it. Specifically, I like how. Oh, by the way, y'all want this document? Just email the admin at thefoundation.com. Just put a document from the show, and I'll email it to you. You ain't even really got to say anything, and I'll email it right to you. This is a cold document, man, by the way. And it's, I throw it in the public. Usually only trustees get this. I don't even think this is on the website, but this thing is cold. And I like the way I really like this. Generally speaking, beneficial interest is that which is held by the beneficiary of the trust or beneficiaries who are entitled to a certain proportional share of the trust assets during the life or at the termination of the trust, while capital interest is that which is held by the exchangers who have invested property into the trust and thus become entitled to a certain proportional share of any profits and assets remaining at the termination of the trust. So, beneficiaries are just beneficiaries. Trust certificate or trust capital unit holders are essentially exchangers who have invested property, personal property. It's can be Federal Reserve notes too. And thus become entitled to a certain proportional share of any profits and assets, anything remaining at the termination of the trust. As a rule, the terms and provisions of the trust instrument control the manner in which beneficial and capital interest are to be administered, so the trustees would hold a meeting of the Board of Trustees and resolve to bring together or craft the specific rules and terms and provisions of each trust instrument, the beneficiary certificate as well as the trust capital unit. And that will be in the contract, thus acceptance of any certificate, whether it's trust capital unit or beneficiary certificate, technically usually agrees to the terms of distribution. Other than that, there's no power exercised by beneficiaries or trust capital unit holders over the administration of the trust. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is called the control test. And it's one of like 3 to I think 5 tests that are used to determine whether or not your trust is being run as an association or a partnership and not as an actual trust. You can have the illest trust indenture on the planet if you administer the trust improperly. Oopie. Oops-y. Straight up. Oopsie. Like a 3-year-old hitting their knee. But there are certain principles which govern these interests in construing the fundamental classification of the trust. For instance, it is held that where the certificate holders have control over the trust property and or administration of the trust affairs, the trust arrangement is in fact a partnership in which the shareholders become liable for the act of the trust. I'm cool on that. The basic principle is that if it is free from the control of the interest holders, then it is an express trust. This is commonly referred to by courts of equity as the control test, like I was saying earlier, in which control must ultimately rest with the trustees of the trust in order for it to be properly classified as an express trust or a contract. Is really what we're talking about. We know what is. I know what is meant when I see the term express trust. I'm just translating to execute a contract. Okay, thanks. The well-settled principle applied by courts of equity is that interest holders, by full legal title and control over the trust property being vested absolutely in the trustees, cannot be considered partners nor agents, and therefore cannot be held liable for the debts of the trust in that manner if they don't have control. Should I wrap it right here, y'all? Should I keep going? I feel like should I keep going? When the trustee is engaged in trade or commerce in behalf of the trust acting under general common law, the trust is within the jurisdiction over which the literal and absolute protection of the Bill of Rights extend, and he has no direct contact with the federal government. Contract law protected by the federal Constitution, the trustee enters into the commercial jurisdiction via contract, i.e., by willfully availing the trust of benefits like the quasi-corporate privilege of limited liability for the discharge of debts by using Federal Reserve notes pursuant to the economic system established under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Think about it. Under this jurisdiction, the federal government has full and direct contact with the trust as they see fit for the benefit of the public policy regulations, known as codes and statutes of this jurisdiction. This makes the federal government a third-party intervener in the affairs of the trust by operating law, because the trust is being allowed to get away with not truly fulfilling its commercial contracts as is required under the common law of contracts. Because, it's not true gold and silver. So, any bank account, credit card, vendor account, vehicle registration, these are what is known as minimum contacts. And in those specific instances, if there's a controversy between the Board of Trustees and the bank, that controversy is under federal jurisdiction. If there's a controversy between the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Board of Trustees, that controversy is under United States jurisdiction, commercial jurisdiction. So, State Department of Motor Vehicles, state court with regards to that specific contract. If it's a state bank, state court. If it's a federal bank, Wells Fargo, federal court. Remove this. Lack of jurisdiction. The trust is not under legislative code. Well, this specific controversy is because you willingly, as trustee, opened a bank account. Think about it. It doesn't work. I try to remove it, in the bank and stuff, and they got jurisdiction, and they try to, the court is corrupt. All right. The Roman civil law as a base model for commerce regulation was developed out of necessity the church to avoid political scrutiny for its handling of an ever-increasing of precious metals. It had become a storehouse for the money and property the people were persuaded to give in exchange for limited liability. You go directly to heaven instead of hell by confessing your sins. As the people became more educated and saw what was really behind the power of religion, the Roman Church fell under greater and even greater criticism. This led to the development of a banking system to handle the control church wealth and take the critical focus away from the church. The bank learned from the church about limited liability. If you could get people to borrow money beyond their ability to pay back, you can get them to keep performing or paying on the interest in one form or another of a debt, or which is also a debt is a liability, without ever demanding the principal, thereby loaning out the same credit to more than one individual or company. This meant that the bank was limiting the liability of the borrower, so he was not fully responsible for the debt as long as he continued to perform to paying the interest. This was real money, or gold became credit, paper money, by loaning to more than one person. Being involved in this sort of commerce was called private commerce. With the church's control over wealth, this private commerce became standard practice in world trade upon the sea. Private international or admiralty maritime law became known as Roman civil law as it began to figure heavily the politics of every city and country it touched through international commerce. By operation of this body of law, particularly its in rem element, all persons subject to its jurisdiction are not necessarily regarded as fictional vessels per se, but are more so as objects of the state. These objects, like vessels in traditional admiralty practice, are vested with a distinct quasi-corporate persona. Citizens of the United States, whether state or federal chartered corporations or metaphysical chartered colored public persons, therefore are akin to public vessels of the United States within the broad meaning of the Public Vessels Act. Y'all look that up. The Public Vessels Act. And are regulated accordingly. The United States, as with the Roman Church, is considered in international law as a ship of state. The express trust, then, is akin to a private vessel of the United States of America, navigating through the often hostile waters called interstate commerce, which is international commerce via the United States treaties. Even though the express trust is technically not a business trust within the established meaning of the term, this in no way prevents or inhibits the trust from engaging in all manner of business. The trustee is permitted to do under declaration, and it need only obtain the franchise of a business license if it anticipates doing express business in the above described jurisdiction. The trust may operate as or operate a business, acquire a business, sell or otherwise dispose of his business, or even contract under the limited liability system and become a taxable entity. The choice is yours. The only thing which may bar the trust from conducting any particular kind of business in any certain jurisdiction is the public policy of that jurisdiction, regarding which it has been admitted most states have not passed upon the subject directly. Most states, they cannot pass a law impairing the obligation of contracts. And if they pull the contract is not a person, then the United States ain't a person. And then they're going to problem. So you understand that this is the foundation. Trust is the foundation. I know the name of the show is The Foundation. The foundation. Trust is the foundation. And, this is what we get in with regards to trustee training. This is what I'm trying to get to y'all. I'm trying to get y'all this information, man. I really am. It's important to me. And I just think, I think, I don't think enough people are going to get this, honestly. I don't think enough of my people are going to get this information in time. And that really concerns me. I'm ever optimistic, though. I really am. But this concerns me. So, with that being said, admin at welcometothefoundation.com. We got 3 days left before, the foundation is no longer accepting new trustees, man. I think I'm going to go to the phone lines. If we got anything popping on the phone lines, let me see. Yeah, we got some callers. If y'all have any questions or some comments, y'all just want to say peace, just press 1 on your keypad. And we'll get to you. First caller. Area code 574-4500. Peace. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name's Billy. I'm calling from Mississippi. And why are you doing lawyering on the blog area there? I don't understand it. I don't get it at all. I'll tell you, I got a legal question, though. I do. You know what happened to me right here in the trailer park? Well, do you? You want to know? I have a legal question. A big old lesbian ran over my sister's dog. She was on a Vespa, right?
Hello? What was on? You said someone over your sister's dog? I don't know pranking. I don't know if you clown or not. But I can't. Okay, that was interesting. Let me go to the next caller, 954026. Peace. Which name are you calling from?
Peace, peace. How you doing, man? It's your boy Brian.
Hey, peace, man.
So,
hey, man, how you doing?
Yeah, that's an interesting call. That's a very interesting call. I guess we need a little bit of, excitement or somebody making a joke of it.
I heard he said something about lawyering, and he said loitering or lawyering, and then he was like somebody ran over his sister's daughter or something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, I was coming to show. I like to just tell you, hey, appreciate what you always doing. I mean, I'm pretty sure you understand that a lot of people do appreciate this, but it's always good to let people know. Regardless,
Sounds like you in the wind. Yeah. Sounds like you in the wind.
All right, but is that better now?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I was in the wind for a bit because I had to grab something out the car. So, and I was just saying appreciate what you do and everything like that, always and stuff. But it's funny, like you said, people need to understand that, things are getting serious. I don't know if you heard about the whole, remember when they were doing the whole BIE thing? When it came to black identified. Right.
No, what is BIE?
Hello? Oh, for real? I know something you don't know, bro. I
don't know.
What is it? Oh, BIE.
What is
BIE, the whole black extremists. The black extremists.
Oh, okay.
That was
all right.
Yeah, you know about that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm bringing it up because people didn't understand decided. So because the FBI and in people's eyes, it came off as like they're attacking people when there's no history of these people doing that, like doing anything that would be considered a terrorist attack, right? So what we were talking about was like, why you have it? So the FBI was like, you know what? I guess you're right. It does come off looking like we're, attacking a certain group of people. So what they did was they lumped everybody in the same thing. So pretty much what I'm saying is now they didn't change the BIE, right? They didn't change the manifesto and the whole reason why they're doing it. They just lumped them in extreme, what is it? It's a racial identify extreme groups or something like that. And so they lumped them with the white nationalists, all the other groups that are supposed to be terrorists. And people don't realize that they did that because now they're pretty much still operating the same way. You get what I'm saying? They just grouped it in that setting, right? So they put you with the skinheads and the white nationalists and all that, saying like you're just as bad as them. But the problem is they got a thing called Operation Hammer Fist. I think it's Hammer Fist, and basically it's the new COINTEL for this generation. And if people don't know what COINTEL was, it was the way how they broke down certain groups that was in the so-called, quote unquote black community, and they used to infiltrate. They have people that they feel that they can turn and start having to be inside man on what's going on when it came to the Black Panthers and all these groups. And what they said also in that is they're not only attacking people that call themselves like, the woke people, black people or whatever. They said they're attacking the people who believe they Hebrew Israelites, and they attacking Moors. They said they're going to start looking into all these people because they said they are these extreme groups. So people got to understand it's getting serious to the point where you need to be, preparing for this because they're doing things that you're not really looking on the surface. People being distracted by all this, Popeye's chicken crap. Which one's better, Popeyes or what's the other one? Chick-fil-A, whatever one, I forget. And, you're distracted by all this stuff, not realizing that they're plotting. They don't want, and to me, they don't want people to unite or, I'll say brothers and sisters to link up because these other people are having guns and stuff. And, you know, these groups don't have guns. They're not running around trying to push their force. They're just trying to come together and try to do what they need to do. But it seems like, to me, they don't want you to do that. And because if you do that, you might try to overturn what they're doing. So why do I bring that up? Because, like Soap was talking about, you got to be prepared for this. And one way you can prepare for this is, you know, rocking with him and Yusuf and all these other people. They're trying to give you the information to get yourself in a better position. You know, they're trying to make you understand that you on somebody else's board and you playing the game, but you don't know the rules. You know, it's like playing basketball. I don't know where the 3-point line at or where the out of bounds at. You know, you gotta know where you're going. So, in order to win the game, so you don't have to play their game. You just gotta learn the rules. That if you know your ancestors actually made up these rules, and these people just know how to manipulate it and pretty much P. Diddy it. They remixed it, you know. So they remix everything, and they understand it better, and you can get back to that position of understanding how to use the stuff that was created by your ancestors. So, you know, that's it. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You sound like broken up, but yeah, that's all I was saying, man. Because people don't realize, like I said, I'm gonna leave it at that. And you can go to the next person, but they're watching you. Like I said, they are really trying to. They had the BIE, and it came off as really prejudiced, and then they grouped them in all these groups. So there was like the Taliban, the white supremacists, anybody who they consider a group that racially identify, they are now calling them extreme groups. So you got prepared for that. You got prepared once you start trying to do stuff. Like they said, real gangsters move in silence. So people got to get to that point. So, you know, and watch the people around you. Like, you know, the people, you got to have a real tight group of people because you don't know. They might be somebody working for the government. You never know.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's all I got, and I appreciate what you do, man. And, you know, on to the next caller, I guess.
No, that's real. My thing started chopping up. Sorry about that.
Okay. I can hear you now better. So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, my other mic I was using started chopping up, and I could hear it. So.
Yeah, you know who really broke it down a real good place. If anybody want to see it, go type in the Young Turks. The Young Turks on YouTube, and type in like BIE or Black extremists or racial extremists, and they break it down to you because it was in newspapers. I mean, not newspapers, but it was report. But most people I know ain't gonna read, so or they don't have time to read. So that's a good way to see what they're talking about because they broke down what they said about like how they gonna have that. I think, like I said, it's stone hand or stone or stone hammer or something like that. And that's meant for us, meant for dark people, black people, melanated people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are valid points. I think I don't think a lot of people realize exactly, you know, how this stuff is shaping up and what this stuff is really starting to look like. I think a lot of stuff that's going on in China, you know, the protests and stuff. I mean, I feel like they're doing a lot of tests in different countries, man. Figure out how exactly they're gonna do this dance, but I think what you're saying is very, very, very pertinent, and it's all the more the reason to not only get your circle up, but, you know, tighten up your circle as far as who you're dealing with. Because, I mean, there's a lot of send-offs out here and high-level finessers. So, really, you know, watch who you're dealing with. Because who knows? But, yeah, I think that's, you know, I think those are good points, man. Appreciate you calling in, man. running back. Yeah, this whole thing is chopped up. All right. I feel like I say this all the time, man, but Block Talk is really tripping. And I can't even really deal with this switchboard anymore. I keep getting that alarm. But I'm gonna wrap it up, man. I can't pull any callers in. This stuff is what it is. It happens. I appreciate y'all checking out the show. With regards to the trust basics, I definitely really want y'all to be able to get into a position